Boys and girls, it's the weather report for August 1st, 2022. God damn, the summer's almost over. This is horrible. Horrible, horrible. However, some people are going to be glad when summer's over because this has not been a good summer for a lot of people. Like, people are dying of heat exhaustion and floods. Like, Las Vegas got flooded. I mean,
Maybe this will start waking people up to climate change thing.
Oh, no, it couldn't be that. I mean, no, it can't be that. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah.
It's just a really bad summer.
Fucking Western United States is on fire. We've got a drought here in Minneapolis. They're flooding in northern Minnesota. They're flooding in Kentucky and flooding in Las Vegas. And no, nothing wrong with the climate. Yeah, I don't think they quite understand that the speed of climate change has a lot to do with what the problem is going to be. That, ain't going to quite do it. Anyway, so what are we going to talk about today? There's Sarah Walker. We talked about her backstage, so I'm not sure if we're going to talk about her now.
Jay White, the Demon. Have we seen him before? I don't remember.
No, maybe once or twice. Hi, Jay White, the Demon. Hi,
well,
Eric.
Anyways, hey,
and
nice
Jason.
to see you here.
So, Jason, we were going to talk about how people with PhDs are full of shit. Don't you agree, Dessel? Or is Dessel gone?
Did we lose Dessel?
No, Dessel's here, but I missed the last of it because I'm still trying to fucking re-engineer this fucking vape pen. So what's going on?
People with PhDs don't know what they're talking about. Oh.
Yeah, no, I usually take that for granted.
Yeah. Yep, they're just full of shit, Jason. Anyway, so this idea that when you explain evolution, okay, now here's the thing. Creationists keep asking for, and I noticed this very early on in the creationist-atheist debates, that they keep asking for a mechanism. They want to know the mechanism of speciation, right? They want to know how limbs grew, how, bugs got legs and all that crap. And then when you start explaining it to them, they say, I want evidence. I don't want to see a story. And Standing for Truth sometimes even goes as far as to say he wants to see a paper that shows a beneficial, he wants to see a de novo protein created, and he wants to see the paper that talks about it, right? Yeah, and we're stuck with this whole problem of 100,000 generations to get a decent change, And Rebecca, bless her little heart, even though she won't give me Atheist of the Month because she's ageist. Anyway, Rebecca keeps telling me, I don't want to hear any stories. And I tried explaining to her that, okay, like when I read textbooks about how DNA replicates or repairs itself, I'm reading stories. Don't you agree that those are stories?
I mean, yeah, but they're stories based on evidence.
Well, yeah, little tiny pieces of evidence, right? But some of them, I mean, we've never actually seen.
I mean, what's the difference here between a story and an explanation?
I know, and that's kind of what I want to get at.
Not too much. Well, I guess you could say story is more mythological in context, but I mean, even there.
Yeah, but
first send you a scientific paper that she said that passes muster with her as a not story.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But the thing is that, okay, first of all, Andrew, myth does not mean that it's made up. Okay, a myth basically.
That's true. Yeah.
A myth is a story that explains something deeper than what what the surface of the story is about. Okay, so a lot of myths, have like I can't think of one right now. But anyway, who the hell was it? Campbell? I think he did a thing on myth.
Joseph Campbell? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, his big thing was that myth has a real strong purpose in explaining things and communicating things between cultures and people.
Right.
Didn't he have a series called The Perennial Myth?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and then something about warriors.
Oh my God! So Dave M is old, so she can't be ageist. So she's just prejudiced against speed of sound. That's what, or pudding brain. She doesn't like pudding. Maybe that's it. I don't know. She gave it away to some joker again who I'd never even heard of this month.
Oh, who was it?
I don't know, Bengu. I don't know, not Benghazi,
Bro
but
guy.
who?
Bro guy.
Bro guy. Okay, I don't even
Bro
know
guy.
what the fuck that is, and I don't care because I'm just not convinced. I mean, I went in my library and I tore my whiteboards down and I painted the wall and I got all ready to put my certificate up. And I tuned into her channel today and she gave it to somebody else again. So anyway.
I may have a poor sense of humor, but I do like Nerdy Rodent's joke there. Little pun.
Mythbusters sleep in debunk beds.
Nerdy always has comments that just get a chuckle out of me.
Yep. We
guys,
appreciate you, Nerdy Rodent.
Bigfoot thing, I've heard it called myth and cryptic at the same time.
Well, cryptic has to do with it just being as of yet unclassified wildlife. Myth is just the fact that it's a big, hairy, primal ape being, and cultures tend to each have their myths and legends about such. So,
well, there's the boogeyman myth, which we tell to our children, and it turns out that I think maybe parents are afraid to tell their kids horrible things about boogeymen now, but they used to tell us about the boogeyman and kept us indoors, when they need to do.
Well, some myths like Bigfoot, you don't even need an entire word to describe them, just 2 letters.
What's that?
Yeah, at some point, terroristic storytelling just went out of vogue. So I don't know if that's a cyclical thing or if society just developed a concept.
Yeah,
let's not scare the shit out of little children because nobody likes fear.
Like Little Red Riding Hood, Little Red Riding Hood used to always get eaten by the wolf, right? And
Yep.
yeah, and then I heard that they even went further than that. It was like even more horrible than that. I can't remember what they said, but it was horrifying. I wouldn't even tell my kids that part, but but I like when my kids were growing up, we had these basement steps that I didn't want them coming down. And I also worked down there, right? So anyway, I told them there were 2 dragons that lived in the basement, Diggy and Tooth. And when they stopped believing me, I went and shook something in the vents, and they thought it was the dragon, right? So, and Tooth was the one that would eat them, and Diggy was the nice dragon. So there was a nice dragon and a mean dragon. And it was, they were just little shits, and they.
You have to have Gadzuki to Godzilla.
Yeah. Gadzuki. Anyway,
that was a little cartoon, tiny, mini Godzilla that couldn't really do a flame or whatever, and it was part of the theme song for the Godzilla cartoon. I remember that.
The strange early life of speed of sound.
So anyway, they were about 6, 7 years old, and they started not believing anything I told them. Because they realized these myths were myths, but then we worked that out, but it was kind of interesting, and then they got into fantasy, so they're into gaming and really sci-fi and fantasy, and I think it was partially because we raised them with a rich set of mythology, and it just got their imaginations going. So I think it's fine to scare your kids a little bit, especially. Oh my God, I did terrible.
I wonder if that's an actual psychological phenomenon. Just curious if you tell enough lies to someone, do they stop believing you altogether?
Well, they
probably right.
They learn skeptical inquiry, right? Like my sons would, when they were little boys, they would hold my chin and make me look in their eyes, and they'd both stare at me. So I had 4 little blue eyes looking at me. And if I smiled, they knew I was bullshitting them.
Ah.
Because I told them, when I was a kid, we didn't have water. And
We didn't have water. We had the bare sweat coming out.
yeah, there's no water. We didn't have school buses, and we didn't have air and all these luxuries that you little ones
It hadn't been invented yet.
Hadn't been invented, yeah. And so so they figured that out, and it gave them a real good, healthy sense of skepticism that's really served them well. So I think that was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
But I was, I don't know, they were really tiny, and we were walking across a Target parking lot, and they were holding my hand, and we came upon this red slushy that somebody had spilled on the ground, and I stopped and pointed at it and said, "There's a little boy who didn't hold his dad's hand in the parking lot," and they both looked, and they bought it. They looked up at me like, "Oh my God, is that what's going to happen?" But they held on tight. And that's all I wanted, is to keep them safe. That was my fucking job. My job is not to never let them understand fear, right? My job was to get them to adults without them dying, and they didn't. So
what's their medicine cabinet look like these days?
Those guys?
Yeah, your kids.
They won't take any drugs because they have to Google everything, and
oh, okay. Well, that's good.
They won't even take fucking aspirin. I mean, it's an act of God to get them to take Tylenol. Even they're afraid of everything's going to hurt them. Yeah, we overprotected our kids because they were preemies and they almost died when they were young. So we ended up being overprotected parents. But anyway, back to the story thing and theories. So the whole thing about evolution and the reason why we say it. The rhetoric I've been hearing on Cell's channel, particularly, and a few others, is that, the abiogenesis researchers are saying we have it all figured out. No, they fucking are.
No. Who says that?
Cell says that, and basically evolution is a fact. It's a fact. Well, people will.
Well, I mean, granted, some people on YouTube say it, but they're not necessarily abiogenesis researchers.
Yeah, but I think I'm more skeptical than anybody, because every time I hear about something evolving, I go and Google, how did this thing evolve? And then I read about it for weeks and weeks and weeks. I mean, I think that's skepticism, right? I mean, I'm skeptical about, hell, could it just popped in there? I don't know. But what they do is they go and Google the first thing that they Google, what are problems for evolution? And the first problem they come up with, they come to a dead stop and they quit reading. They don't even read past the abstract, for fuck's sake,
Not usually.
It's just amazing. So, but the thing is, when I think about, evolution being a fact and the age of the Earth, the age of the Earth is 4.54 billion years old. Or is that where it is now, Andrew, or have they changed that?
Huh? Say again. Sorry, I was looking at chat real quick.
4.54 billion years old. Yeah,
something like that. It's like a 1% error or error bar, as far as I can tell. Right. That's the number right now, I think.
I mean, that is a fucking fact, and the reason it is because there are so many different sources of information that cross-check.
Right.
And that's why these young Earth creationists, I mean, they really, really have to ignore everything and never read anything, never believe anything that they read at all. And but then they'll say,
even if they aren't ignoring everything, they have to ignore everything else in isolation of a single thing and just go run with that and forget everything else that's connected to it.
Yeah.
All they're looking for is a silver bullet against evolution.
Yeah, that's it. The silver bullet, and they think there's this fucking Sal Cordova. He thinks he's found these silver bullets, and so is SFT. And it's just absolutely amazing. But
with a dime for every silver bullet a creationist has, I'd be rich.
I know. My God. Yep, Kentucky Fried Dinosaur. Oh, I like that one. Yep. They used to, yeah, that Kentucky Fried Dinosaur, that used to be a thing 6,000 years ago. Actually, they would kill dinosaurs and cook them with 17 spices and herbs.
I think, didn't I see on Dr. Joel Duff's channel the other day, like apparently Standing and someone else bought into like a fake dinosaur human footprint thing or something like that. I didn't watch all of it, but I
They
that was interesting.
They have this basically a slab of something where it looks like they broke it open somehow, and they got a human footprint and then they got a dinosaur footprint, and nobody has access to that fossil. Nobody knows where it came from. Nobody knows anything about it. And they won't release it for testing of any kind. It looks to me like somebody took a little chisel, like a little screwdriver and a hammer, and built that thing. So anyway, yeah, that's one of their their proofs. And of course, then there's those trees, those polystrate fossils they call them. They actually made that term up. That's not an actual technical term. They call them out of place fossils, I think, or something. Technically.
Well, I mean, you can sometimes tell when fossils. I mean, it doesn't usually happen, but you can tell if a fossil has been kind of moved out of place rather than just inherently being out of place, because sometimes the sediment layers, a younger sediment can get slumped into an older sediment layer, and that kind of mismatches things. But you can usually tell when that happens, as far as I understand. So it's not impossible to figure out. And again, that's where all this cross-checking comes in, because if you use one dating method and you find, okay, it has this particular age, but this totally unrelated dating method says it has a different age, then you have some reasonable suspicion that something's been going on there.
Yeah. Yeah, then you've got some kind of an issue, and there's all kinds of issues.
And I hear the creationists going out, well, you're just then choosing the dates that match up with each other, that inherently support your evolutionary worldview. But if that were the case, then any time we're cross-checking things in, say, like chemistry or physics, and we get discordant numbers, is there a physics worldview then that we're trying to uphold for some reason? Like, this is done all the time in science. Like, if your numbers don't match, you either have two options: either there is something going on there, a new phenomenon perhaps, or your instruments are faulty in some way, and the latter option tends to be the case.
Yeah, this thing about worldview, it kind of drives me crazy. It drives a lot of people crazy, and there's a reason for that. And the thing is, we all have a naturalistic worldview, every human alive, and that's what kills me. It's because, like, if you grew up in the wilderness, right, in a small tribe or something like that, you would have a naturalistic worldview, because concerning things that are really immediate to you, like going out and getting food or not drowning in the river or whatever, you would always look for natural causes all the way around you, right? Now, when it comes to outside things like thunderstorms or tornadoes or hurricanes or whatever, you might be, your culture might teach you some sort of mythical worldview, but what is immediately in front of you is always a naturalistic, methodological naturalism. Is the method by which we all live every day. Everyone, every human on the planet goes about, like, if you want to build something, you go and get materials to build it. You don't try to magic it into existence. So everybody has a naturalistic worldview in their day-to-day concerns. And when they start to, like, for me, what the thing I was trying to explain to Rebecca when I went on her channel talked about evolution, is that I never really thought about anything else. I mean, I never considered some sort of mystical supernatural force, because it just wasn't something that was in my life ever. And why should it be? I mean, why should I look to the supernatural when everything around me was methodological naturalism? And so it was never a concern. So evolution had nothing to do with my atheism. My atheism was an entirely different path. And so that kind of drives you crazy when they keep talking about your evolutionary worldview. So
what would you say to someone, for example, who retorts back that, well, God's just there keeping order to things. He's not an inherently dishonest being or something like that.
You mean that God is behind all the order in the universe, or he created
it's not natural. It's just God is kind of the keeping all the gears running, basically.
Well, yeah, then, if you can prove that there's something that's doing that, then fine. But I just don't need that. I think the gears work all by themselves. But you see, they can always say that.
Right.
You can always go back. Like a proper way to believe in Christianity is to accept, you can accept the, Christ is risen stuff as a one-off miracle. And everything else, basically, God set up the universe in such a way that he set it in motion when he created it in such a way that all of this happened naturally. And that God created those, fine-tuned those physical laws to make evolution and everything else happen. And that isn't a bad way to be. That's it's not a belief that I would fight with too much. Okay. Even though, I just don't have the belief that there's some mind critter outside of the universe that's planning and manipulating things like I plan and manipulate clay, I mean, it's just not.
Imagine if it was kind of like some myths behind the miniature golf courses where there are these tiny little people running around kind of making everything work. What if it was the same thing with the universe? That would be funny.
Yeah, when you hit the ball, there's actually a little midget that comes out and rolls the balls.
Right.
Toward the hole. Yeah, there's no such thing as actually hitting the ball. I mean, that's bullshit science. I'm not going to believe that stuff, right?
I can't remember the name of the movie. I think it had that actor whose name I can't remember now, who was in The Bourne Identity, Matt Damon in it. But it was called The Something Bureau, and it was about all these entities in the background, like from moment in time to moment in time, who would reassemble and set things up, and it's
right.
That kind of idea about the universe.
And every now and then you'd catch them, corner your eye, you'd see them move something back.
Or something would mess up,
Yeah, they just had to keep the natural order. Yeah, there's that idea, and that kind of brings you to the other real shitty thing about dealing with these creationists is they can make up anything they want,
right?
Including the entire universe was created last Thursday, and you cannot argue against those propositions because it could be the case.
Right. Yeah, and I think that gets to the underlying thing here is that you're fine kind of making up whatever you want to. I mean, like to some extent, that's done in science all the time. But what the differentiating thing here is that if you're going to make up an idea, it should be testable in some way. And this point has been driven home so many times, but it's the fundamental thing here. Is your idea testable or not? Does it make specific predictions that you can go out and look for? If not, then who cares?
Yeah, I think T-Jump's, what do you, creed or litany or whatever is novel, testable, repeatable statements.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And for whichever of us is keeping track of Nerdy Rodent's belief system, make sure you add underpants gnomes to that file. Apparently he's a big believer and underpants gnomes, and I think I'm going to have to do a little research on YouTube to figure out, what those are exactly.
Yep.
Behind the shadows, there has been a secret war waging between the gnomes and the dragons and the pink elephants behind stage.
Yeah, I used diatomaceous earth to, in my underwear to keep those gnomes out because they hate that. They don't like it. Gets rid of them.
I think if you put diatomaceous earth in your underwear, you would hate that too.
I know, I do it, but it's Scott. It's better than those fucking gnomes.
That's true. Sometimes you have to pick your
pick your poison.
Devil. Pick your poison.
But the thing about being able to make up anything you want, like, okay, if you have some sort of metaphysical idea where you can make up anything you want, then that means that there are an infinite number of possible things, right?
Right.
So how do you prove it?
Trained in any way?
Right. And the problem with that guy, I call that junior high metaphysics, where basically you can come up with like a brain in a vat or any idea you want. Last Thursdayism, but there's an infinite number of things that you can make up, and so I'm not buying any of that. And God is, the Christian God is one of those infinite number of bullshit things that you can make up, and I'm just not convinced.
That's kind of the big thing that kind of separates science from magic or any other kind of belief system, is that the thing that's constraining your ideas that you make up, so to speak, isn't the laws of logic or whatnot. It's, does this have empirical foundations, basically?
Yeah.
Or empirical consequences, or however you want to put it. Basically, science is empirical. Like, not too many people disagree with that.
Yeah. So the way I hash out my naturalism is I start with something I call R1, which is reality one, and that's a reality that is instilled in us as we develop from a firstborn, and we meet the world and we learn that objects have object persistence, and if you put something behind an object, that if you turn an object around so that you can't see the back of it, that there still is a back of it. You learn all those things when you're a child, right?
Right.
And I call that R1. So R1 is how we can live as a simple creature in the universe, the things we learn. And then R2 is an extension of that, which is science. And science becomes a real God, what is the word I'm looking for? It becomes a more rigorous way to test things. And then out of that falls mathematics and logic. And so we have these real rigorous things, and I call that R2. And then all the way around that, I call all the seventh grade metaphysics ideas, I call them M1. So those are the metaphysical possibilities that created the universe, right? And there are, unfortunately, we have no access to M1 in the way of proof. There's no way to prove any M1 system. So you can make up anything you want. Unfortunately, physics has the problem of coming up with one of those M1s and making it mathematically related to R2, right? So we have to somehow reach from R2 and come up with the mathematics that's going to tell us what exactly is around the universe, what is on the edges of the universe, what is dark matter, and all that stuff. So I mean, so there are metaphysical systems that are worth talking about and worth thinking about, but most of them are just bullshit stories made up by your grandpa.
Yeah.
You're not gonna trust grandpa on fucking anything. Grandpa's full of shit. Atypical asexual atheist, Carol the atheist. Whales are fish. No, hang on. Okay, man, that is a name. Atypical asexual atheist. If they want to call themselves that, I'm personally fine with just saying what. Oh, whales are fish? No, I'm not going with that. What's this? Nerdy rodent. Eek.
whales are fish and bats are birds and
So what happened to?
Centipedes are insects. And,
Oh, Scott had a phone call. Scott,
well, maybe you can join us again later.
Scott had to go to work. So, are you taking chemistry yet?
Nope, but we'll be in a week and a half ish.
Okay, you taking that
semester starts?
General chemistry?
I think so. I forget exactly what it's called, but yeah, just chemistry, physics, and biology, basically. So all science this year, yay!
Good. God, I did that back in 1974, general chemistry, and I've had to dip into it here in the last week or so. And I remember the horrors of rate equations and equilibrium and, oh my God, calculations, units, all that crap. Oddly enough, I haven't had to use it since. Oh, I did. At one point I did, but I'm not going to tell you what I used it for because it's a family-friendly show. But occasionally you have to deal with molar fractions. Yeah.
Speed of sound. Answers in atheism. We are inherently family-friendly. Just don't look behind the curtain.
Yeah, don't look behind the curtain.
Nothing to see here.
Yep. I was hoping Jason would come in and fight a little bit about
where's Jason?
I don't know where he is. And credentials and things like that. Okay, so, well, we have Sarah Walker, who we could talk about. You got anything on your mind, Andrew? And have you been in anybody's chat in the last week or so, or have you?
No, unfortunately. I I did. Well, I think I was telling Scott the other day. I created a sock account to kind of spy on what Raw Matt was doing on one of his premieres the other day. Okay. And like usual, I took it down because immediately after I thought, I'm not going to do this again. I was kind of telling you, it's kind of cyclical behavior with me for the most part. But yeah, I guess I was discussing some geology with some people in the side chat. Oh, this might bring Jason in actually. Apparently, like it was this one of those silly marathon videos again about Noah's flood.
Oh yeah, with Kent Hovind. They had him on that one?
No, it was with different people. I think it was just like of past discussions with creation scientists. Let's see. I was talking about aeolian deposits in the side chat, trying to explain it to a few people, and apparently most of them weren't getting it. And what else? Trying to debate the topic of, do floods create meandering paths like rivers, which kind of just seems so bizarre to me. Like, of course they don't.
Right.
In a straight line.
I suppose that
some people were trying to argue that, like, the Grand Canyon, of course, a lake burst open or a dam burst open, and it created this meandering track, basically, some of which are 360-degree turns, I might add, from the rushing water moving at various speeds. And I'm like, no, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, if water's moving at what the hell is it, like 100 miles an hour, and it's 800 feet deep, it actually melts the rock underneath it.
Right.
And it would have to do that, but then all of a sudden it stops and turns a corner. What the fuck's that about?
Right, because you can see it making these slight twists and turns and like unconsolidated sediment, basically, but you don't see it with like a mile layer of hard rock. Like, you just don't see that.
Yeah, and the other thing you see is big pock marks, like out in Washington State.
There's the scablands, yeah.
Yeah, like these 20-foot deep.
If a global flood were true, why don't we see that all over the place?
Right. Yeah.
Because we know what floods produce.
Yep. Yeah.
sorry, one other thing. Apparently, this might be a little bit silly for any geologists or geoscientists listening out there. Or just one thing I was finding interesting the other day was apparently sand isn't in geology isn't defined by its composition of quartz or whatnot. Did you know that?
It's defined by size.
Yep, it's defined by the grain size basically. So there's in order of smallest to largest grain size, it's basically clays, silts, sands. You got various gravels and cobbles and whatnot, all the way up to boulders. So I don't know. That does seemed interesting to me the other day.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a lot of information about what a huge flood looks like from out in Washington and in Minnesota.
Speed, you're kind of muffled.
Oh, I am? Still?
You're kind of muffled for a second back there. Now you're good.
What the fuck? Weird. For some reason, ever since I went up north and unplugged my computer, my microphone is acting weird. I don't know why.
Huh.
I better check my settings.
Anyway, for anyone interested, those are the channel scablands, like Speed said in Washington State.
Yep. Yeah, those there's a lot of information about what floods do. And one real interesting thing is these chunks of ice broke off and floated, and they had gigantic boulders on them.
Yep.
And then they melted, and there was like no way for even a flood of that size to move some of these gigantic boulders. There's one in, let's see, western Minnesota called Boulder County, and you're driving along, and right out in the middle of a pasture is like a 20-foot high boulder.
Oh, wow.
And then there's tons of them, and they're really kind of incredible to see. And I think those were moved here by the glacier, and then the glacier melted. It wasn't a flood.
These glacial outburst floods is what they're called.
Yeah, but these were, I think these were on, well, these were like moved on top of the ice or with the ice. And
I mean, glaciers can move pretty big sediments too.
Yeah, they have a lot of force.
They can move boulders.
Yeah, and I think wasn't it Jason that was telling us about the grinding pattern of, the grind is different for glaciers, or did I read that somewhere? Basically,
I don't remember hearing that. What?
Yeah, you can tell that a sediment has been ground by a huge, something like a glacier that's moving along, and it grinds things very, very fine. So there's this super fine grind, whereas a flood can't do that. A flood couldn't.
Is that the same as like these striation marks you see on the rocks beneath the glacier, or is that different?
Yeah, you'll see that, but I mean, it couldn't create this extremely fine grind that like water wouldn't do that. Water would break off chunks.
Yeah,
I think, and there's a real fine grind. But then
interesting.
You need a fucking geologist in here to make sure that I got that right, so that you can tell what it comes from.
Did you guys see the long story short release episode 4 on energy harnessing?
Yep, I did, unfortunately. Those guys have way too much money to produce those videos. They're well produced.
I've just seen the ones they did on, what was it, whales and homology, I think. Those were pretty bad.
Jackson,
I didn't see the most recent one. Dare we watch it?
We could. There's a lot on it. Long story short.
Maybe we should save it then.
They bring up a lot of topics that are, there's a lot to talk about on that. What do you think of it, Dessel?
So I mean, he used J. Boz Jackson and he also talked about molecular machines. So I mean, there's like I sent this email to some people, might have been including you, Speed, But basically, it's long story short, and the reason why it's short is because everything's omitted. So he doesn't point out the Nick Lane response, and J. Bos Jackson writes this article. He lumps in Russell, Martin, and Lane all together, even though they have like different models, but he treats it all as one model, and he criticizes them for different things. And so there was a response from Lane, in I think it was 2017. He wrote Proton Gradients at the Origins of Life, and then Russell has his own model, and so long story short, it's talking about how you need these molecular machines. Lane argues, no, you don't, and he gives his account as to why.
Right.
But even more telling is Russell has been arguing for years for molecular machines, molecular engines, as energy converters, and he uses Fougerite, but that's not even mentioned. It's just completely omitted, as is Lane's response to Jackson. And there are a lot of other things in the video, and I'm going through right now.
Don't you love this charcoal grill theory of charging your iPhone? That was a pretty good. Before we move on to that, the cavemen saw our world from the sun's point of view, a natural view to have, no education, no programming. I think there's something beautiful about that. Anyway, something Buddhist about it, Dessel. Something Ellen Wattsian about it. Okay, so they make a case here for basically, you got all this energy in a charcoal grill, but if you try to charge your iPhone with it, you end up where the hell they show it, melting your iPhone or some fucking thing. Yeah,
so it's one of those analogies again.
Yeah, it's one of their analogies about melting the iPhone and stuff. And then they talk about ATP and all this bullshit.
Yeah.
How you need the machines, but they bring up a lot of things. It's very well produced. It's clever. They have a wonderful actor reading it, and I wish I had their money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at least happy that they're finally taking a look at hydrothermal vents to respond to it, because for the longest time, I'd ask, like I remember going onto Standing for Truth's channel, and there all these guys. You had Sygart there, you had Rob Stadler there, you had all these guys with James Carter, and I would ask them questions like, can you tell me what thermophoresis is? Can you tell me what serpentinization is? Just like basic parts of like a hydrothermal model, and nobody knew anything. And they even had this guy who I don't think had I don't think he was any kind of like expert or anything like that, but he responded back, "Oh, these are just things that they make up in desperation."
Okay.
Okay, yeah, okay. So this geological process that's going on, all across the seafloor, it's not real.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was at least happy that they're starting to take a look at hydrothermal vents like more seriously now, like this more of the specifics. But they're using Jackson in this video. A while back when I did a video on Otangelo, I talked about the Jackson papers. And there's been a good response from Lane. And likewise, they need to deal with Russell too. Like he uses Fougerite as his molecular engine. And so there's that, and there's other stuff that they brought up too.
Yeah, they're sophisticated enough to talk about this issue here, where they're saying that basically the energy gradient, because of the thickness of the cells or whatever.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, that's another bogus one, because talking about how thick the cell membrane versus the actual vent wall. But Lane points out in his rejoinder that at the black smokers, which are even thicker, the electron transport still works. So like even with something that's like ridiculously thick, you can still have the transport take place and work. But the point wasn't to like say that the cell and the vent wall were supposed to be like exactly analogous in terms of their size and length, width, height, all that stuff. Yeah, sorry, I'm like half falling asleep, but yeah.
Way back when I was, we lost Dessel.
We lost Dessel.
Fell asleep on his phone, and he must have hit the off button or some fucking thing. Anyway, way back when I was a kid, I started reading about minerals and the chemistry of minerals. And there's all of these complexes that form, and they have a lot to do with hydrolysis. I got to put Dessel back in. I don't have Scott around. They have a lot to do with not hydrolysis, but basically water attaching to various minerals, and they form these clathrates and all of these really complex structures. Minerals do. It's just entirely inorganic chemistry. There's no carbon in it at all. And then they form these really strange crystals. And some of these crystals have interstitial spaces and stuff between them, but they're very, very tiny. And there's just a whole world of things that you can learn about in inorganic chemistry that's very, very complicated. I mean, you think of inorganic chemicals like NaCl. Well, these things have 30 atoms in them, and they're arranged in this very bizarre structure that almost looks like organic chemistry, and we haven't explored any of that yet. So,
sorry, where'd you guys lose me? Because I was trying to push my chair back and I dropped my phone. So
yeah, that's what we thought happened. Right when you said you almost fell asleep.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, no, I would just, I'd encourage people in terms of the Jackson articles, because those are interesting. Like those are at least legitimately trying to criticize hydrothermal vent models. It's just that when I read them over, and then I read Lane and Russell responding to those, I thought that the response from the hydrothermal crowd was sufficient. It was a good response, which is why I continue to support them even after reading Jackson. In terms of the thickness of the vent wall, how you can still have the transport, irrespective of the fact that it's thicker. He gives a bunch of different criticisms, like how the organisms would be trapped in the vents is another point that he tries to bring up in a later paper, because they would be dependent on the pH gradient, if I remember right, was his point. In his first article, he says the pH gradient doesn't help at all. And he just basically poo-poos away chemiosmosis, even though it's universal to all life. He just wants to say, well, screw the phylogenetics. He literally, at the end of his article, he says, I don't care about the phylogenetics, screw it. It evolved later. So he had that going on, and then he wanted to poo-poo away the whole idea of the pH gradient mattering at all.
This guy?
Yeah, yep, that's him. He's got 3 articles, right? And so
I'm guessing he's not a creationist.
No, he's not a creationist. He's a legit abio researcher. He wants to support a heterotrophic origin, not an autotrophic origin, and he wants to support more of the I think more traditional strong version of an RNA world, and I think he likes the more Damer-Demer approach with the hot springs. And so because he's part of that crowd, he unleashed this litany of articles. There were 3 of them in a very short period of time that all came out trying to criticize the AHV, alkaline hydrothermal vent model, that he again talks about it in terms of the I think he calls it the RML model for Russell, Martin, and Lane. And that was one of the responses that Lane gave, was look, you're lumping all 3 of us together here, and you're treating it like one model, but it's not one model, because as Lane points out in his response, he doesn't use molecular engines. He has a different way of doing that, where you have the chemiosmosis working at the vent interface, and you don't need these engines. it reduces down to you end up getting formaldehyde, and then from formaldehyde, it's thermodynamically favorable to start getting, your foremost reaction. From there, getting your sugars and your carboxylic acids and all sorts of other stuff. And so he works with that without the molecular engines. But then you have Russell, who's working with molecular engines as energy converters, and he uses Fougerite. And so like that's one of the criticisms that I had of the long story short thing, because if you're going to say, okay, well, this doesn't work because you need a converter, and the person who founded this theory has a whole theory about converters, and you don't even bother to mention that in your video or even try to deal with it at all, that's one of my difficulties there.
Well, that's
Another
just being
thing,
dishonest.
yeah, I mean, I actually I sent that video to Russell and said, as usual, this proceeds by omission, but I want to see if he has anything to say about it. But give like a couple last things off the top of my head, I guess. The idea that the organisms would be trapped in the vents. So he starts off saying that the pH gradient doesn't matter, not a thing, don't care about it. And then later on, the organisms are trapped in the vents. Apparently, if I could be remembering this wrong, so don't take it to the bank, but I think the whole reason for that was supposed to be the pH gradient, that it didn't originally matter. But if you read Hideshi Ooka, Electrochemistry at Deep Sea Hydrothermal Vents, which is an excellent article, and I think it really kicks Jackson right in the ass on the importance of pH. And so like that.
Okay, Hideshi Ooka?
Yeah, that's Hideshi, and then Ooka.
Okay, Ooka.
Yeah, however the hell you pronounce that last name, I can never tell.
Okay, I'm trying to put Dog's video up here. We may have been wrong about the origin of life. I don't know, by Seeker. I'm not sure what that was about. Seeker. That's the name of the channel. It's a YouTube video. We may have been wrong about the origin of life. That would be right here. Trying to put that up. I'm going to go look up Ooka. Hideshi Ooka. So what was the paper?
Electrochemistry at Deep Sea Hydrothermal Vents.
Okay, oxygen, evolution. Let's see, electrochemistry. We're going to type that in. He's got a few articles.
That's it's one of my favorite abiogenesis articles, because it was one of the ones that really made me start to think that these guys were onto something, because basically how I work is, if I like a theory, I really like to subject it to harsh criticism, and if it can survive, if it can survive that harsh criticism, then I'm really going to start to go with it. And so for me, Jackson was the harsh criticism, because like most other people aren't even touching like the details of it, of this theory, but at least Jackson tried to with these 3 articles. And so like he was my testing ground for whether or not I was going to end up supporting this and running with it. And so this article that I just mentioned by Hideshi Ooka, apologies for my pronunciation. I'm sure it's just as bad as Wachter-Schauser for Icarus. But reading that paper really drove it home for me that it really does seem like the AHV guys are onto something. And so like the last thing, I guess, unless we continue to talk about this, but the last thing I'll say about it is his criticism that they would be trapped inside the vents. And Russell's model for this is really good, because in terms of the alkaline vents, like they have this really gradual breakdown. And so because they're gradually breaking down, now you have the ability for selection to start working on their gaining independence from the vents, of like gaining functional capability to maintain their own proton gradients over time. And so like the fact that you have that they're geologically available, where it's a slow, gradual breakdown, that means that those populations will have the time to develop that kind of functionality. And so, those kinds of responses were why I felt that the AHB crowd was able to best Jackson and his alternative.
I've linked both those papers that we looked at in the description for anybody to look at, but I'll take a look at them. How are you doing on putting papers up on the site there, Dessel?
I've been just reading papers on my site, on my channel, but I haven't put any on the I haven't put any in your drive for like the last few days.
Okay, listen. When you read those papers, right before you do that, just put that one page. Just name that one paper, curate it, and put it up on the site. That's all I ask.
So, like, okay, and so, like, how much money were you gonna pay me to do that?
How much fuck you can I say?
I appreciate the way you turned this into a money-making opportunity, Dessel.
Absolutely. Well, you know me.
I'll pay you 10 cents. Okay, I'll
These
pay
fucking
you.
capitalists, you know me.
I have 2,000 papers, and I think I'm willing to pay 10 cents a paper to have somebody rename them and put them and curate them for me.
Oh shit! 10 cents a paper. I might have to think about that. Sounds lucrative.
Yeah, that's about $200. Yeah, might have three. I don't know. Not sure. But anyway,
I'll return to it soon. And actually, I lied. I'm going to talk about one more thing, which has nothing to do with Jackson. It has to do with me going over The Stairway to Life by Stadler and whatever the other dude's name is. I always forget his name, like Chang or whatever the hell. I read this.
It's not a dude. It's changed 10.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I read that a while back, and I'm sorry, you were just about to say something. What did you have?
She basically got fired because she was a horrible teacher. She couldn't, it isn't really her fault, but she couldn't communicate with the students because of her language, because of a language barrier. And she got horrible reviews. Sal thinks she was fired because she was a creationist, but anyway.
I didn't even know Tan was a woman.
Yeah. She's kind of a neat lady, but she really has not mastered English at all.
Okay.
And she was teaching at an American university, and I read the reviews on her, and they were not good. Yeah, she was not a good teacher. And then her explanations were horrible too. But according to Sal, she got fired because she was a creationist. But and I doubt that helped her case. But anyway.
Yeah. It's okay. It's just like a really big crock of shit so far. Because like I went through this before I really started to deep dive into abio. And I read it, and then I started going to these deep dives. So like there was still a bunch that I didn't like understand about abio research and like the state of the field and all that. And now, like several hundred papers later, I go back and I took a look at that. Really dishonest, as a matter of fact. Like they say things like nobody wants to talk about homochirality, and right. Nick Lane wrote a whole book about the origin of life, never mentions homochirality. Nope, actually he does. And you probably didn't even bother to read the whole fucking book then. You probably just did like a search and put in homochirality and nothing came up. And so you thought, oh, he doesn't talk about it. But as a matter of fact, yeah, he does. And he attributes at least a partial solution to selection for that, like a lot of other researchers do. And then, like, they reference Dawkins as an abiogenesis researcher, and they say, he never talks about homochirality, but they like have all these references to papers that have just been published just a couple of years ago. It's a very recent book, but yet, like, for example, whole books on homochirality that you can find published, recently, like the most recent citation I heard in the book so far is like 2019, and there's a 2019 whole fucking book on homochirality that you could read. One of the contributions is from Rebo, who's the guy that I'm relying on for a good answer to homochirality with the whole like spontaneous mirror symmetry breaking thing. So
you see the name of this right here? Are you looking at the screen?
Yeah, so this is a different one. If you go
1990.
to, you could look up possible explanations for homochirality or something like that.
Oh yeah, I've got it.
Possible.
I
Yeah,
have
and it's,
I have paper after paper on that.
yeah, and there's tons of fucking articles written about that, like way too much. And so, but they act like it's something that everybody avoids talking about. They talk about concentration, and even though they talk about Lane's book, they frequently quote Lane, and they just distort it in a number of different ways. They say that there's no mechanism of concentration, so like a big thing, and the vital question is thermophoresis, your heat gradient that has like all of these great results over the course of the last 15 or so years on being able to concentrate these molecules like crazy, never gets a mention in the book. Takes for granted that we're talking about millions upon millions of years for abiogenesis, in spite of the fact that, Lane, Russell, all these guys are talking on the scale of tens of thousands of years at a site where the geological structure lasts for about 100,000 plus. And so they're actually operating on that level for the emergence of life much shorter than Tan and Stadler want to insist that we have to go with. And there's like all sorts of other stuff that they just totally misrepresent the state of the field and pretend as if they've accomplished something. And that's just kind of the pattern, I guess, huh?
Yeah. And they list all the isotopes, like 64 of them for some sugars and all these possibilities, and they don't give you any research on how there are certain pathways that produce certain chiral compounds consistently or over and above. All they need is to be like 0.01% above the rest of them, right? And they're going to end up populating. But they don't talk about any of that. They just tell you what all the possibilities are, and then they do their little calculation about how many combinations there are, and so they start multiplying and doing factorials and bullshit, and that's all they ever do. That book got real tedious real fast. It was horrible. So John, it's 36,526 days, and I'll be 100 years old.
What?
36,526 days, and I'll be 100 years old. Well,
well, yeah, because I was really kind of disappointed. That's why I texted you. I Google how many days old are you if you turn 100, and the answer comes back 36,500, and I'm like, no, that's not right. Like, there has to be a certain number of leap years in 100 years. I didn't know I didn't know whether you just divided by 25 or what the deal was.
Well,
it's
pretty close to 36525, but it's actually 36526 for me. And I have 10,386 days to go, and then I'm going to die. Okay, at 100. So.
Well, and so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, so 10,000.
What's really surprising is that's what you get in 100 years. You only get 36,000 days. So you better fucking be concerned.
That's why I was, I didn't know, like, because depending on where the 100 years falls in the course of time, it would be a different answer because there would be a different number of leap years because there's certain years that we don't recognize leap year. So
right. Anyway, we went off on a tangent because I saw you. So anyway, Dessel, the Stairway to Life. It bored me. It was just a boring book because there just was no content. It was over and over again. Here's another stair you have to climb, and then they would go on and on and on with these bullshit calculations. And God, I'm sorry I paid for that, but I did.
No.
anyway.
Yeah, I'm still going over it. I think I'm at chapter 9 right now. I got to go back because right now I'm going over it through audiobook. The first time I read it, and this time I'm going over it by listening to it. But yeah, there's a lot of bullshit up in there.
Next time you go camping, Speed, you can always use the pages of the book for kindling.
Yeah. What the hell was it? There's this
That way,
Joker.
once you spend $20 for kindling, that's too much, but still, it's putting it to good use.
So I bought this book,
wait a minute. Wouldn't a book and its pages be more tender than kindling, Scott?
Yeah, it would be better. Well, birch bark is pretty good if you peel that inner layer off. Don't ask me how I know that.
I will definitely accede to you gentlemen in matters having to do with the differences of firewood and lighting fires outdoors.
I wanted to thank Scott for sending that Chen, O'Flaherty, and Bonfio ABio lecture.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty cool presentation.
Yep. Yeah, I dug that video. I just went through it. I don't know, like an hour before the stream started, and yeah, it's pretty good.
So Speed.
What?
Is the long story short video that you just showed earlier, is that the same one in the one Ramat did recently, or whatever it was called, Genetic Entropy and the Origin of Life, or whatever he called it?
Yeah, I think it might. Yeah, I think he did cover it. So
okay.
Yeah, this is it right here with the little cute little animation and stuff like that. But, so, do you know who Rupert Sheldrake is?
Not off the top of my head.
Good. Okay, he's this guy that's got this theory about morphogenetic fields, and that and that's how life happened and all this stuff. And he's like the biggest wool artist you've ever met, but he's got a bunch of shit on YouTube, and he calls them.
How do you get life from something that multicellular? What?
You say his name is Rupert?
I think it's Rupert Sheldrake.
Oh, Rupert. I thought you said Woopert.
Yeah, it could be Rupert because he's full of woo. But anyway, we in my philosophy meetup, we covered his book. And when I got done with it, I took it home. And I won't throw a book away. And I even have a Bible in my library. It takes a lot to get me to throw a book away. And I took that book and I threw it in the corner of my garage. And I just found it a few weeks ago. It was covered in spiders. And it was just like horrible. But anyway, it was so fucking bad. I mean, this guy is just, and he's making money going around giving lectures and TEDx talks and crap like that.
Hey, who was that guy that was, I haven't seen him in a long time. He was in the community. He was like Mr. Wonderful or something like that, or Mr. Smartest Man in the World, or he was like some foreign guy and had all these nutty ideas, and he wrote a few books and like has them for sale on Amazon. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I think I've heard of him, but I can't read off.
His name's Mr. Intelligent Design.
Yeah.
Have you seen him? Yeah, because if you want some books that you'll definitely throw away, go on Amazon and find his books.
Yeah. Here's one. This is Rupert Sheldrake, basically. The Science Delusion, Freeing the Spirit of Inquiry. And he goes on and on about how we're so deluded that we don't buy into his theory of, his bullshit theory of morphogenetic resonance or some fucking thing. He just pulls it apart. Yeah, some kind of resonance theory or something about, how life began, how the universe exists.
I don't even know what that means.
No, he doesn't either. But he sounds good when he talks about it. He makes he's like I say, he's making a living on books and bullshit. So.
I came across a channel on YouTube almost as bad the other day, where it was, I think, a neuroscientist talking about how just to name a few things off the top of my head, the expansion of the universe, gravity as we understand it, something to do with electromagnetism or particle interactions or something, just like a big chunk of physics as we understand it today, like the core of our understanding was just wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
There are other alternative explanations.
Yep.
So, but it's not as kooky as probably what you're saying, but.
Could you?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to ask you to just pull up a couple of articles for me. If anybody's interested in the Jackson critiques, just to like point you in the direction of the articles that I think answer him best. And I already gave you that one by Ooka. That's how I'm going to say his name. Sue me.
Wait, no. You want me to type this shit in all by myself?
Yep.
You know, I'm recovering from cancer, dude. You're making
but you're a communist. You're supposed to live for other people.
I'm not a fucking communist. Ayn Rand is my hero. Fuck you.
Oh, shit.
He's recovering from something to do with his kidneys. His fingers work just fine. He can use a mouse and a keyboard.
I'm a life. Yeah.
The exercise will be good for you.
Okay. Have you lost the use of your fingers? Okay.
I'm on the, not yet.
Christ.
All right. So I can even just mention them too. You really don't have to pull them up if you don't want to.
Well, if you at least type the names in the private chat, and we wouldn't have to go through this bullshit where I don't quite understand how to spell it or whatever.
All right.
You know?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so 1 second here. So we got proton gradients at the origins of life, I think, by Lane.
Oh, I think I have that one downloaded.
So that's a direct response to Jackson. So like, a bunch of different things that Jackson has to say, Lane responds back. I think that's a really effective rebuttal. It's not exactly the way that I want to go because I really am interested in these molecular engines that Russell's talking about. So for those, you could do Fougerite by, I don't know if it's either Duval or Ponce. I think it's Duval. But if you type in like Fougerite and I think Duval, that one should pop up. And then this one, Green Rust, which I've talked to you about before, Organizing Seed of All Life by Russell. And that gives an account, those last two, Fougerite by Duval and Green Rust by Russell, give an account of the molecular engines, the energy converters that are able to harness the energy.
The not so simple progenitor of first cells, Fougerite?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to type the names in my description. I don't think anybody ever fucking uses my description anyway, so why am I doing all this fucking wakey? And you guys can fucking Google it yourself. Fuck you kids. Get off my lawn, you little fuckers.
Is it time for a snack, Speed?
Yeah.
Snack time.
He needs his ultimate snack.
I think it's time for a friggin'
I think speed is sundowning.
Damn. Yeah, you guys used to deal in speed bumps. I could use one of those right now. I'm fucking tired as hell right now. I need to wake up.
That's not how speed bumps work.
Oh. All right. So I guess they're not nearly as fun as I thought. They're not nearly as fun as they sound.
I mean,
they're fun, all right. You just don't understand.
That's how speed bumps work if you're doing bumps of speed.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was the currency around here.
So, should we listen to this then?
What do we
What's
got?
this?
Let me see.
On this side, Top Dog linked this thing. Let's see. We may have been wrong about the origin of life.
Crawled from the oceans onto the land. But new research suggests that instead, it might have been the other way around. We've had the idea that life began in the oceans since the 1920s when it was first put forward.
Is she?
Sounds like she's gonna go for hot springs.
Let's check
Oh,
it.
we got the
Whoa.
water paradox. There it is. Jeez Louise. I wish people would actually read the fucking literature. But anyway.
Oh,
On the work that produced the nucleotides, in 2015, Sutherland and his team were also able to produce the building blocks of proteins and fats.
I linked her.
And that's a big step because now with nucleotides and protein and fat precursors, we've got all the moving parts needed to get life going. And in 2020,
That might be worth a listen. So
Yeah, it sounds like she's going for a terrestrial origin, and she sounds like she knows what she's talking about. She's referencing Sutherland and all that. That's the main competitor to the theory that I like most. So
Sutherland, I went over his video for like the third time. This time I did it in detail. The one with the genetic code that they're looking at, and that is incredible. So basically,
Is it just me, or is your mic volume really low right now?
I have no idea what's going on with my mic.
It did go low.
Oh, now it's better.
and now it's better again. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it right in front of it. I don't understand what's going on. How about now?
It's good now.
God damn. I had the gain cranked up. It happened ever since I unplugged this mic. I have no idea. I have to like put it right in my face. I don't like doing that. Anyway, he found out that, tRNAs, all tRNAs on the 3' end have a CCA. Okay. Basically, and then right before them, there's like, what the hell is it? There's two nucleotides, like a UUCCA, and then before that is a 3-letter code that ends up being a second genetic code. And when he started testing those things, they would attach a specific amino acid, and it turned out to be the same as the anticodon that attaches that amino acid. And that's what that video is about. And so they looked at it, and it was just staring right in their face, this basically really strange relationship to these 4 nucleotides. But unfortunately, they're not where the anticodon is. But he has some theory that he's working on about how that secondary genetic code, or I guess that would be the first genetic code, ended up being transferred into the anticodon. And there's very good reasons for it to be there. But it's almost like they were looking at just random chemistry, and the genetic code fell right on their feet, or right at their feet. And it is really awesome. And he's going to publish a paper sometime toward the end of this year that's going to explain all of this. And it's some amazing research. And that's Sutherland. I don't think he's working specifically on that, but his lab is, and there's about 20 people working on it. So,
yeah, it was a really good video. I remember.
But ain't that cool?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
and that's
pretty cool.
They're going to find that over and over again in the next however many years it takes us to get a good theory of abiogenesis put together.
I saw Demeter commented before. I just got done reading Chatterjee and Yadoff from 2019. What the hell is it? Origin of the Prebiotic Information System. And they quote him. They quote his work on bridge peptide. And yeah.
What? He's here. It's so funny that he's here because I'm leaving.
Anyway, what were you saying, Dethel, before I so rudely interrupted
Who
you?
ran off Andrew? How long's Andrew been gone?
I apologize. I ended up hijacking this stream with a bunch of my usual one-horse pony abiogenesis discussion.
Well, I guess.
That's what I wanted to talk about today.
So is Andrew against abiogenesis? I mean, does he not like it?
Who?
Andrew. He's not here anymore.
He left.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I guess not.
It also might be because I'm half talking like a zombie, so I might have put him to sleep.
Oh, okay. Well.
He couldn't listen to any more wrong from you, Dessel.
I don't blame him. Yeah. But and I don't know what's you can't get a one pot. Hold on. There's a paper, one pot water compatible synthesis of nucleotides.
Really?
Yeah.
Why are we talking about marijuana? We were talking about abiogenesis.
Oh,
I'm getting confused.
yeah. Yeah, and you're making me itch right now. I haven't smoked in a few weeks actually. I was trying to cut down on it, and I've been doing a good job. But now that you mentioned that, all of a sudden, my body's like, "Yep, you need to smoke a blunt."
So one pot synthesis and biochemical characterization of magnetic collagenase? No.
No, that's not it.
Yeah.
If you
Have you ever heard
try,
of
try. Oh, fucking! I'll try to look it up. Because I'm pretty sure there's a paper. It's the title of it's real close to a one pot water compatible synthesis of nucleotides. Let me check.
Oh, so in that same video, Sutherland found some really amazing things about nucleotides and synthesis of amino acids too. That is worth taking another look at. One pot. Okay, what kind of synthesis?
So
One
one pot.
Water compatible.
Yeah, water compatible synthesis of nucleotides. If you try that out, and I think it's 2016. It's been a little while since I've read that one.
One pot water compatible synthesis of pyrimidine.
There it is.
Let's see. So pyrimidines. Cool. Okay. We'll put that one in the fucking description, even though nobody's going to read it.
Yep. Actually, I should go back and read that one again.
Vera. Cool.
Yeah. So you get your standard Otangelo there. It's impossible to have this. Here's a paper that has this. It's impossible to have that. Here's a paper that has that.
Well, if you wait around, Otangelo will give you the paper that shows why it's not impossible. And he'll claim that the paper says it is because the abstract says that. So he's really good at finding papers for us that basically shoot him down. Thank you. You're my favorite. One of my favorites. Let's see. Anyway, God, I'm feeling like shooting it in the head. Can't get anybody to come in. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares.
Yeah, and sorry, like I said, I'm kind of out of it today. I got like 2 hours of sleep last night, so I'm just kind of.
You're just jealous that you're getting a new kitty pretty soon.
Yeah, I am getting a new kitty. I hope. Well, he started eating like crazy after they treated him for the coccidia. His those two little kittens that had the white ears and the white noses that were in the videos, both those died of that same thing.
That's sad.
Yeah, his brothers died. Yeah, that is sad. And he almost did because he was not thriving. So anyway.
Oh, hold on 1 second. Let me see something here. Let me make sure because Otangelo is saying that the paper is actually nucleobases. So if that's the case, then yeah. Then if it's nucleobases, then no. Then that's not all the way to nucleotides.
Let's see. Synthesis of pyrimidine nucleobases, but actually, the nucleotide part is covered in another paper. Don't worry about that. And so is
Cafferty's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Ribose tends to be 5'3" or what is it? Was it? Oh God, 5'3" or 5'2" are the most common. Basically, ester bonding. So for some reason, Change Can, talks about how it could be any one of the carbon atoms on the ribose. Actually, it turns out to be mostly 5'3" and 5'2", and for the 5'2" one does something I can't remember.
Yeah, anyway, it's still stable enough to work. I saw Zostak talking about that recently.
Yeah, we keep finding these that the biomolecules that we have are the biomolecules that tend to form the most often in our experiments. So there you go, Otangelo. Stick that one in your fucking pipe. Okay. I think I'm going to shoot it ahead. I'm getting pretty tired too. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm just toast today, so I'm sorry.
Zombified. Anyway, thanks everybody for showing up out in chat. I appreciate it.
Yes, it was a very lively chat. I really enjoyed it.
Lively chat. Yep. We're having a great party, and then Otangelo came in here, and then everybody left. Right? Okay. We're shooting her in the head, guys. Goodbye, cruel world.
Bye.
I feel so bad about this, but bye.
Answers in atheism.